beginning of the V8 Miata build.
Some could say that this car has been my unicorn. A project which I pledged to finish in under 8 months has now taken me double that. But every step of the way has been an amazing learning experience, and over the past 16 months, I've changed this car one heck of a lot. But in reality, this car has also changed me. It sure has been quite the journey, and after several months of inactivity, I now have the motivation to keep going.
So, just before my 3-month project hiatus, I decided to take this car to work one morning. Well, this didn't really go so well. The car overheated about halfway there, and I ended up having to call for a tow truck.
Since the overheat occurred when I was highway cruising in high gear at constant low RPM, which is something I hadn't done in my testing, I was fairly confident this meant there had to be air left in the cooling system. So I re-burped the whole cooling system several times, but I kept getting more air introduced, and the overflow coolant would never get sucked back in. I was scared this meant I blew a head gasket the day it overheated, so I purchased a head gasket test kit, but fortunately, the test turned out negative. This could only mean one thing: there had to be a leak between the overflow tank and the cooling system. After replacing the cap and checking all the hoses and connections with no success, I called Monster Miata and had Martin ship me a new custom radiator fill neck. This turned out to be the problem all along.
So with all these things fixed, that means the car's done, right? No, it's not done.
Okay, so I'm not done, unfortunately, and I apologize for it because I'm sure people are anxious to see this car done after 14 segments. Anyway, take a listen at what the clutch sounds like when you press it in and out. Here's a view from underneath the car. Yeah, that doesn't really sound too good. So it looks like the bearing, throw bearing, is kind of binding on the shaft there as it moves forward and back. So after fixing these clutch issues, it will be the 3rd time that I installed this transmission on this car. These are the steps required to pull the transmission off. Step number 1, jack up the car. Step number 2, remove the exhaust system, which consists of disconnecting the O2 sensors, the air pump hose, unbolting the 2 pipes at the collectors, pulling out all the rubber mounts, and then dropping the whole exhaust system. Number 3, disassemble the center console and take the shifter apart. Step number 4, remove the drive shaft and plug the hole at the transmission to avoid excessive transmission fluid loss. Number 5, disconnect the speedo cable, the reverse light switch, and unbolt the slave cylinder and the brace. Step number 6, remove the transmission cross brace. Step number 7, ensure to have a transmission jack properly secured to the transmission and apply a slight bit of pressure to ensure that it is supporting the transmission. And finally, unbolt the 4 bolts that hold the transmission there, wiggle it out of there, and drop it down.
A little while ago in another video, I showed how I bought a new clutch fork from the one that I had originally modified for this project, and I drilled the hole a little bit further. Okay, this is the hole that the push rod pushes on the clutch fork to, engage and disengage the clutch. I drilled the hole a little bit further so that it would have a little bit more travel. But the problem with the hole further is that the push rod was very angled, and I think in the end it created more harm than good, and it may have contributed to some of these problems. While I'm in here, I've decided to go back and put that original clutch fork. Just to get the clutch fork out, you don't actually have to remove the bell housing on this particular application.
I proceeded to replace all of the clutch disengagement components. The new throw-up bearing came pre-greased with the correct lubricant for this application, so I didn't have to add any grease. But it is very important, however, for the bearing to remain well lubricated and slide smoothly on the retainer.
Now that we've replaced the pivot stud, the clutch fork, the throw-up bearing, and the bearing retainer, we're ready to throw this back on the car, and we should be getting some nice smooth operation of that clutch.
I've found that there isn't really an easy way to put a transmission back in. The trick is to take your time, constantly keep adjusting its position, and try and keep it as straight as possible. I like to keep inspecting everything as it goes in to ensure the throw-up bearing and the clutch fork end up being positioned correctly. Most often it requires a bit of shaking back and forth until the splines align. Now that the transmission's bolted back up, it's time to top it up from all the fluids lost in the process. Unfortunately, the T5 plug is on the side, nestled up the tunnel, and makes it very difficult to fill. I've used many different methods to do this, but in the end, I prefer doing it with this $25 self-priming drill pump. The hardest part is getting it primed, but after that, the process goes quite smoothly.
Alright, let's put the exhaust back on. I'm getting super excited because it has been several months since I've taken this car out for a drive, and I'm hoping to get it out here this afternoon. Now the big question is, did all this work actually resolve the problems I was getting with the clutch? Well, you judge for yourself. Here's a clip underneath the car. That sounds good to me. So we'll get the exhaust back on and she's ready to go. Let's hope this does it. I'm going for a ride. Hopefully I make it back with this car. I waited for this for a long time. I love this! Well, I'm super ecstatic. Everything went well. I'm back in the garage now. Aside from needing an alignment, I think this was a success. 3 months since I drove this car. Man, it feels good to take it out for a spin finally. All right, thanks for watching. Until next time.